2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 3. You show that you are a letter from Christ, the result of our ministry, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not on tablets of stone, but on tablets of human hearts.
Morning. Well, that was a one-verse text for this message. Some of you are harboring hopes that the message will be similarly brief. We shall see. Now, in this passage, Paul asserts that memory is important. He writes that we poured our lives into yours so much, to such an extent, that in concert with the Spirit, you are our testimony. I want you to remember, he implies, I want you to remember that pouring in. I would like you to think with me for a few moments about the nature of memory, of remembering. And would like to suggest that in our culture we display a kind of manic ambivalence toward memory and history. Anybody see the movie Invictus? Remember that? Not enough of you to make this work, apparently. There's a scene in that movie. It's about South Africa and the story in part about Nelson Mandela. And in this movie, Morgan Freeman, who plays the Mandela character, says, we can't dwell on the past. We must learn to let go of the past so that we can forgive. And this is surely right. Some parts of the past can poison us if we hold on too closely. And yet, we are also told that we should not forget the past. The prestigious journal Foreign Policy recently ran a major article on this very question and said nation states forget the past. In the 1980s, the Soviet Union, the Russians had invaded Afghanistan and spent 10 years mired down there and had to leave ignominiously. And this prestigious journal wondered in print about the United States, because we've been there 10 years. Nation states don't remember the past. So, we ought to remember the past. This is surely right, because some parts of the past can preserve us. And we are, in our culture, I think, decidedly presentist. We don't value the past. So I'd like to tell you a story now, and it doesn't reflect well on me. Just tell you that at the front end. A couple years ago, I was in a Barnes & Noble. I needed a book. I owned 2 copies, but I had loaned them both out and I had no idea where they were. So I thought I'd cruise by Barnes & Noble and see if they had one that I could purchase. And I looked in the history section and the sociology section, all the places where I thought it might be. It wasn't there. And as I'm walking out, a very nice Barnes & Noble employee who doesn't deserve what's about to happen to her said, can I help you? I looked her up and down, thought, I don't think you can, but I'll give it a shot. So I gave her the title of the book, and she typed away at the computer screen. No, we don't have it here. No, it's not in any of the local Barnes & Nobles. I could order it for you, and I knew that wasn't a good idea. It would cost $30, and it would come in a week, and I could get a used copy over the internet in about 3 days. So I said, no, thank you, but I appreciate very much your effort. And I started to walk away. I got 3 steps away when I heard her say, you know, it's an older book. Now, my PhD is in the ancient world. I don't think it's good unless it's 100 years old. So I turned and I said, I think in a smarmy way like this, really? When was it published? She said, 5 years ago. And I said, I see. So you believe that any book that is more than 5 years old is of limited, nugatory value. Is that right? And she said, yes. And then I got a little bit animated because part of me noticed that the other customers were beginning to look at me the way people look at well, people they're afraid might have hidden weapons on them or something like that. And so I said, that attitude strikes me as deeply anti-intellectual and alarmingly presentist. What sort of bookstore is this anyway? At that point, the security guard arrived to usher me outside. It makes the point, however, that, wow, in our culture, we don't think it's worthwhile unless it just happened. 10 years ago, or just 11 years ago, just before the millennium, there were all these magazines that came out about the greatest in history list. One of them was the 50 greatest TV shows of all time. Really, all time. What was number one when they're writing the Declaration of Independence, I wonder, you know? Did they have sitcoms then? And yet, history is important. Memory is important. Our faith is a historical religion. It matters that Jesus was really crucified, really dead and buried, and that he really did rise again. It matters. History matters. Remember, Joshua says in chapter 24, remember the story of God's activity. At Biola, as you train for a career, as you acquire the requisite knowledge and learn the skills of a craft, you'll be afforded the opportunity to drink deep from the springs of literature, the visual arts, philosophy, history, sociology, music, and the like. Why should you remember the past? I'd like to give you a few reasons. First, the stories of the saints remind us that we are not alone. We don't know it all. We have not exhausted the depths of the Christian faith, of its theological or intellectual or spiritual traditions. These stories invite us to drink more deeply of the living water available to us, and they point us to the springs where that water bubbles up and provides life. Others have experienced God, have sought God, have suffered and struggled in the long centuries between ourselves and the life of Christ. And they have been renewed when life seems barren, and it will. When we feel empty, and we will. When we feel we cannot be forgiven, and we will. When we feel overwhelmed, the stories of the faith can show us where life has been found before. Second, the history of the faith serves as a warning against the pride of thinking that we know it all. The emergent church, the seeker church, the skater church, the boomer church, the Twitter church. Is there a Twitter church? Must be. They've all seen glittering, resplendent success, massive buildings, thousands in services, even now on Saturday night as well as Sunday morning. All of this can look like success in the moment, but we are myopic because we're captivated by our own glory. We look, but we do not see. So I've been married 28 years to Christina, and in fact, I asked her to marry me just 29 years ago this month. And we had met, I know, it's very exciting. We met in October, and December, right before Christmas, because her family was going over for Christmas, I remember this very clearly. I was standing on the front porch of her parents' house with her, and we were kissing. That's the part I remember with particular clarity. And she looked up at me and she said these words, "I want to spend the rest of my life with you." To which I responded, this is another story that doesn't reflect well on me. To which I responded, I like you too. If I have talents, social skill is not one of them. You know, the signs were there. Any idiot besides me could have seen them. Are you like me? Do you have that experience? What is obvious to others, to that you are blind. we don't see what's right in front of us. C.S. Lewis noted this crippling problem and wrote this: "None of us can fully escape this blindness, but we shall certainly increase it and weaken our guard against it if we only read modern books. The only palliative is to keep the clean sea breeze of the centuries blowing through our minds. And this can be done only by reading old books." So, go to the library once in a while instead of the internet. Be dilatory as you walk the aisles. Find a book for which you did not seek. And finally, memory is important because the faith we share is a story. It's a story, a long story of God's involvement with human beings, of God's character, of how he acts, and why he can be trusted. And our character corporately, of the fact that we are broken and we cannot fix ourselves and we stand in need of transformation. And it's not just the Bible that says this. The ancients knew this. Cicero and Livy said, Cicero especially said, we ought to form a government that is marked by impediments to human desire, because we all want to take over. The basic truth of the Ciceronian system, and even of the system of this country, is we cannot trust ourselves. We are broken, prone to wander. Lord, I feel it, says the old hymn. And the history of our faith also is how God intervened to set us free, to remake us through the transformation offered us through the work of Jesus Christ. It also teaches us how other Christians at other times faced up to this truth, to the disorder within and the deranged relationships without. The story of martyrdom. And we'll hear about this on Friday. I encourage you to come to chapel, particularly on Friday. The story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer and its inspiration. Stories of sacrifice and of self-denial. You see, we can learn because we come later in the story. Christianity is not just a 100-yard dash, a me and Jesus thing. It is in some ways a relay race. And we can learn from those who have passed the baton to us. I'd like to point out as well that this text is not simply about memory, but it's about mission. The way the life of Christ flowed out of Paul and his companions and into those to whom he wrote. You are our letter, Paul says. The life of Christ has flowed from us into you. He asks them to remember this. And one of the truths here is that we are connected. That's why Paul calls the Christian community a body. We need each other. Even though in our culture, I think most of the time we aren't too sure we need each other. We condescend to put up with one another, perhaps. I learned this the hard way. When I was in grad school, I was writing my PhD dissertation on a New Testament topic, and my wife and I were in a couples Bible study. And here's the deal. When you're writing your dissertation on a New Testament topic and you're in a couples Bible study, you become answer boy for the Bible study. And I enjoyed being answer boy. It fed all sorts of insecurities I no longer have. In fact, I was relatively confident that I could say whatever I wanted. Even if I didn't know the answer, I could act like I did. And so I trotted that out. And one day there was a new couple showed up, Eric and Teresa Echegaray. And they both said they didn't know much about the Bible. Eric had just become a Christian. Teresa had gone to church sporadically as a child. So I'm thinking, oh, good, no challenge to answer boy. And the first question came along, and I took a breath to answer, and all of a sudden I heard Teresa start talking. And I remember thinking, somebody better explain the rules of the Bible study to Teresa. And after about 10 seconds, I got to thinking, that's pretty good. 20 seconds later, I started looking for a pen or a pencil, something to write with. And half a minute into it, I'm thinking, how do you cite this in your dissertation? Because God had given her the gift of insight and description went beyond people I knew with 2 PhDs. Here's what I learned. We do need each other. Because I'm broken in ways I don't even know. And so are you, in ways you don't even know. And the healing touch of God comes to us through the body of one another. And if we look only with eyes of the world, how many letters after someone's name or what kind of car they drive, we're going to miss the healing touch that God has for us. That's why diversity is important. Because we do need each other in ways that we aren't even aware of, in the same way that we're myopic toward history. And so, my friends, in this passage, Paul asserts that memory is important. We poured our lives into yours so much that, in concert with the Spirit, you became our testimony. I want you to remember that pouring in, because it is important for the mission of reconciliation. We poured our lives into yours, and now in concert with the Spirit, pour your lives into those around you and then into the world. May this semester be a time when you learn patterns of thought after the Master, patterns of heart that are thoroughly biblical, and patterns of action that show you are one of God's agents of reconciliation to this world. Amen? And now I'm going to invite the worship band to come forward.
We hope you enjoyed this message. Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Learn more at biola.edu.